Most people never consciously choose to live an average life. It doesn't happen through one big decision. It happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. It creeps in through routines, expectations, fears, and habits that feel normal. It creeps in through comfort that feels safe. One day, without realizing it, you wake up and your life looks nothing like what you once imagined. Not because you failed, but because you drifted. The average life trap is not a prison built in a moment. It is a life built on autopilot. A life that happens to you instead of through you. And the trap is so subtle that most people never even notice they've fallen into it. No one says, "I want to be unfulfilled." Nobody decides to settle. Nobody dreams of mediocrity. Yet millions live in a quiet state of resignation. They follow a script they never questioned. They work jobs they don't care about. They stay in environments that drain them. They move through each day without a sense of direction or purpose. And they tell themselves it's normal because everyone else seems to be doing the same thing. That is how the trap works. It convinces you that an average life is simply how life is. The first layer of the trap is the illusion of safety. Humans crave safety. We are wired to avoid risk because risk once meant danger. But in the modern world, the greatest danger is not failure, is stagnation. The unknown is no longer something that threatens survival, yet our brains still react to uncertainty as if it could hurt us. So we avoid it. We choose routines because they feel predictable. We choose comfort because it feels secure. But comfort, when stretched too far, becomes a cage. A soft, warm, quiet cage that slowly suffocates your potential without ever making a sound. Safety whispers in your ear, "Stay where you are. Don't take that leap. Don't start that project. Don't chase that dream." It pretends to be wisdom. It pretends to protect you. But what it really protects is your current reality, if that reality is draining your life force. Safety is not the enemy. Blind loyalty to safety is when safety becomes your priority, greatness becomes impossible. When comfort becomes non-negotiable, growth becomes unreachable. Another layer of the trap is the myth of the normal life. Society sells the idea that there is a standard path everyone must follow. Go to school. Choose a stable career. Work until retirement. Buy a house. Raise a family. Don't question it. Don't deviate. Follow the script. Billions walk this path by default, not because it excites them, but because it is familiar. It's accepted. It's comfortable. But the fact that something is normal doesn't make it fulfilling. Normal simply means common. And common for most people means unexamined. When you try to break free from this script, people around you often won't understand. They will project their fears onto your ambition. They will say you're being unrealistic. They will tell you to stay safe. They will warn you about risks. Not because they want you to fail, but because your desire to rise forces them to confront their own decision to stay the same. Your courage exposes their resignation. So instead of joining you and breaking the trap, they pull you back toward what's familiar. The most dangerous part of the average life trap is how subtle it is. You don't wake up miserable. You wake up numb. You don't feel the pain of failure. You feel the dull ache of unfulfillment. Your days blend together. You repeat the same routines. You stay busy enough to avoid thinking deeply, but idle enough to never grow. You don't hate your life, but you don't love it either. You're not suffering, but you're not thriving. You're simply existing, and existence without direction becomes quiet despair. People living in the trap don't say, "I'm trapped," they say. "I'm fine," they say. "It could be worse," they say. "Everybody feels like this," they say. This is just reality. These phrases are not truth, they are symptoms. They are the language of someone who has stopped dreaming because dreaming hurts when you don't act on it. They are the rationalizations of someone who has accepted a smaller life than they once wanted. Psychologically, the trap is supported by patterns most people don't even see. Loss aversion convinces you that staying where you are is safer than reaching for more, even when staying means slowly dying inside. Social proof convinces you that mediocrity is normal because everyone around you is living the same way. Hedonic adaptation makes every achievement feel normal after a while. keeping you chasing distractions instead of meaning. And learned helplessness convinces you that effort doesn't matter, that change is pointless, that dreams are delusions. Your environment plays a huge role as well. If you grow up around people who settle, you learn to settle. If you surround yourself with people who mock ambition, ambition feels embarrassing. If your friends live without purpose, you begin to believe purpose is unrealistic. Mediocrity is contagious. You absorb the beliefs, fears, and limitations of the people around you. Not because you choose to, but because humans adapt to their environment. The trap is often nothing more than the result of an environment that teaches you to stay small. Comfort strengthens the trap even further. Modern life is engineered for ease, instant entertainment, instant gratification, instant distraction. Everything is designed to keep you comfortably numb. But comfort without challenge leads to emptiness. Humans need growth. We need difficulty. We need purpose. Without it, the mind decays. People stuck in average lives often feel exhausted, not because they're overworked, but because they're under-inspired. A life without meaning drains energy like a leak that never stops. The deepest layer of the trap is identity. You cannot escape an average life with an average identity. If you believe you're ordinary, you will act ordinary. If you believe you're incapable, you won't attempt anything difficult. If you believe you're meant for just enough, you'll never pursue extraordinary. Your identity shapes your actions, your habits, your choices, and your destiny. And most people never examine their identity. They simply absorb it from their past, from their environment, from other people's expectations. The trap strengthens when you mistake your past limitations for your permanent truth. The cost of the average life trap is enormous. Not immediately, but eventually. It shows up as regret. It appears in quiet jealousy toward people who live boldly. It emerges as a feeling of wasted potential. It grows into resentment, not toward others, but toward yourself. It turns into the sinking realization that you had one life and you lived it beneath your capabilities. The trap doesn't take everything at once. It takes a little each year, until one day you look back and barely recognize the person you became. But every trap, no matter how subtle, has an exit. Most people reach it after a breaking point, a moment where the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing. This moment can be dramatic or quiet. It can come from burnout, heartbreak, frustration, or simply the realization that you've been living the same year on repeat. When this moment arrives, something inside you cracks. And through that crack, truth enters. The truth that you want more. The truth that you were meant for more. The truth that you can no longer tolerate the life you've been living. Awareness weakens the trap. Questioning your routines weakens it further. Imagining a different future cracks it open. The moment you realize you're trapped is the moment you begin to escape. Your consciousness becomes the key. Your desire becomes the force. Your honesty becomes the weapon. Escaping the average life does not happen overnight. It begins with small steps, small choices, small acts of rebellion against the comfort zone that poisoned your potential. But the first step, the most important step, is recognizing the trap, seeing it clearly, naming it, understanding it. Because once you see the bars, they can no longer hold you with the same strength. This chapter exists to turn on the light, to expose the trap most people live in without knowing. And once you see the trap, you cannot go back to sleep. You cannot unsee the truth. That is the beginning of escape. That is where the journey starts. That is where you take back control of your life. Discipline is not exciting. It is not dramatic. It does not shout. It does not inspire applause. Discipline is quiet, steady, and unglamorous. It is the behind-the-scenes force that builds every great life. The world celebrates the results of discipline, not the process. People admire the finished product but overlook the daily grind required to create it. They see the transformation but not the repetition. They see the success but not the sacrifices. And because of that, they misunderstand the truth. Discipline is the ultimate life-building skill. Discipline is the difference between potential and achievement, between intentions and results, between wishing and becoming. Without discipline, motivation burns out, inspiration fades, and talent goes unused. Without discipline, the average life trap tightens around you. But with discipline, you can shape your reality. With discipline, you can redesign your identity. With discipline, you can rebuild your entire life from the ground up. To understand discipline, you must understand that it is not about feeling motivated. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes like weather. Some days you feel unstoppable. Other days you can barely get out of bed. If your actions depend on motivation, you will live an inconsistent life. You will start strong and finish weak. You will plan big, but execute small. Motivation is emotion. Discipline is structure. Discipline is loyalty to your future self over your current feelings. Discipline means doing what you said you would do long after the emotion you set it in has faded. It means showing up on the days you feel tired, uninspired, frustrated, or unsure. It means honoring your commitments, even when your mood resists them. The person you want to become is forged in the moments when you don't feel like showing up. Anyone can act on a good day. Discipline shows up on the hard days. Most people fail because they negotiate with themselves. They say they'll start tomorrow. They say they need to rest. They say they'll wait for the perfect moment. They say they're too busy, too stressed, to this, to that. Negotiation with yourself is the enemy of discipline. Discipline eliminates negotiation. Discipline says, I do this because I said so. No debate, no excuses. No bargaining. Discipline is unnatural because humans are wired for comfort. Comfort once meant survival. Today, comfort means stagnation. Comfort keeps you soft. Comfort keeps you stuck. Discipline requires you to intentionally step into discomfort, to push through resistance, to do the work even when it feels inconvenient. Every time you overcome that resistance, you strengthen yourself. Every time you surrender to it, you weaken the part of you capable of greatness. Discipline is the training of your inner strength. It is the repetition of doing the right thing, especially when it's the hard thing. Your identity plays a central role in discipline. You cannot build a disciplined life from an undisciplined self-image. If you believe you are inconsistent, you will behave inconsistently. If you believe you lack willpower, you won't even try. If you tell yourself stories like I'm just lazy, you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Discipline starts with identity. You must begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who keeps their word, someone who does what needs to be done. Identity fuels action. Action reinforces identity. The cycle becomes powerful. Emotion is another barrier. Most people make decisions based on how they feel in the moment. But feelings are unreliable. They are inconsistent. One bad day can derail a month of momentum. Discipline replaces emotion with intention. Instead of asking, do I want to? You ask, what did I commit to? That one shift changes everything. When you operate from commitment instead of emotion, your life becomes stable, consistent, and focused. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about persistence. You will slip. You will miss days. You will have setbacks. But discipline means returning quickly, without the guilt spiral, without shame, without quitting. Weak discipline collapses when life gets difficult. Strong discipline becomes even stronger through difficulty. Discipline is not the absence of failure. It's the refusal to stay down. The environment you live in has a major influence on your discipline. If you surround yourself with people who avoid effort, complain constantly, chase instant gratification, your discipline will erode. Humans adapt to the standards around them. But if you surround yourself with people who push themselves, who follow through, who chase growth, your discipline will rise naturally. Environment either elevates or suffocates discipline. It is not neutral. You must choose your environment as carefully as you choose your goals. Modern life makes discipline hard. Everything is designed to distract you. Your phone is a portal of constant stimulation. Your apps are engineered to steal your attention. Entertainment is endless. Distraction is everywhere. Discipline requires you to reclaim your attention, to take control of your time, to reduce mental noise, to create space for focus. If you don't control your environment will control you. You must protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Discipline grows when you reduce decision fatigue. The more decisions you make in a day, the weaker your willpower becomes. That's why disciplined people rely on structure. They simplify their routines. They prepare in advance. They reduce friction. They make the path to action as smooth as possible. They remove the need for willpower by designing systems that make action automatic. Structure strengthens discipline. Chaos destroys it. One of the most transformative parts of discipline is how it affects your relationship with yourself. When you constantly break your own promises, you stop trusting yourself. You lose confidence. You lose self-respect. But when you follow through, consistently, even in small ways, you rebuild trust. You prove to yourself that you are dependable. You prove that your word matters. That self-respect becomes fuel. It becomes momentum. It becomes the foundation for confidence. Discipline is self-respect in action. Discipline makes life easier, not harder. Without discipline, life is chaotic. You procrastinate. You stress. You fall behind. You feel unprepared. You live in cycles of guilt. You avoid challenges, and every day feels heavier than it should. But with discipline, life becomes simpler. You know what you need to do? You know you can rely on yourself. You stop battling your own mind. You stop fighting your own habits. Discipline removes the chaos and replaces it with clarity. People look at disciplined individuals and assume they are lucky, naturally driven, or built differently. But they're not. They are simply people who built discipline one action at a time. They didn't wait to feel ready. They didn't wait for motivation. They didn't wait for the perfect moment. They started before they felt prepared. They stayed consistent when others quit. They practiced discipline until it became a part of who they are. And that's the key. Discipline is not something you're born with. It is something you build. There will always be resistance. Your mind will try to protect you from discomfort. Your emotions will try to pull you back into old habits. Your environment will tempt you with shortcuts. Discipline does not eliminate resistance, it overpowers it. The more you override your impulses, the weaker those impulses become. The mind adapts. What was once difficult becomes normal. What once required willpower becomes automatic. Discipline is a muscle. Use it and it grows. Neglect it and it atrophies. Patience is an essential part of discipline. You will often work without immediate reward. You will go through seasons where the effort feels invisible. You will push through days where nothing seems to change. This is the part that breaks most people. They confuse slow progress with no progress. But discipline is long-term. It is the art of delayed gratification. You plant seeds today. You harvest them later. Most people quit too early and never see the results of their effort. Discipline requires trust. Trust in the process. Trust in your direction. Trust in yourself. Discipline creates resilience. When you push yourself through difficulty, you build inner strength. Challenges stop intimidating you. Setbacks stop discouraging you. Instead of breaking down under pressure, you adapt. You adjust. You move forward. Discipline hardens your mind against struggle. It gives you strength most people never develop because most people avoid discomfort. Discipline makes you unshakable. Ultimately, discipline gives you freedom. Freedom from procrastination. Freedom from regret. Freedom from inconsistency. Freedom from the chaos of an undirected life. People think discipline restricts you, but the truth is the opposite. A disciplined person has more time, more energy, more clarity, and more control. Discipline frees you from being controlled by impulses. It frees you from emotional decision-making. It frees you from the average life trap. With discipline, you become the architect of your life instead of a victim of your habits. Anyone can build discipline, but most people won't, not because they're incapable, but because discipline demands honesty. You must admit your excuses. You must face your weaknesses. You must confront the truth about how you've been living. That truth is uncomfortable, but the person willing to face it gains power most people never access. The power to change. Identity is the root of everything. It is the foundation beneath every choice you make, every habit you build, every goal you pursue, and every standard you hold. Most people think their actions shape their identity, but in reality, identity shapes action first. You behave according to who you believe you are. Your life reflects the story you tell yourself about yourself. If that story is small, your life will be small. If that story is average, your life will be average. If that story is limited, you will live limited. Identity is the invisible script directing your entire life. People don't settle because they lack potential. They don't settle because they lack intelligence. They don't settle because they lack opportunity. They settle because their identity tells them that settling is what people like them do. They tell themselves they're not extraordinary. They tell themselves they're not capable of big change. They tell themselves their past defines their future. They tell themselves they are the kind of person who tries but never becomes. These beliefs feel harmless, but they are chains disguised as thoughts. Your identity is shaped long before you realize it. It comes from your childhood, your culture, your failures, your successes, your relationships, and your environment. If your parents were afraid of risk, you absorbed that fear. If teachers underestimated you, you internalized their doubt. If your peers mocked ambition, you learned to silence yours. If you grew up around mediocrity, you learned mediocrity is normal. Identity is not chosen at first. It is inherited. It is absorbed. It becomes your default programming. But the most important truth about identity is this: identity is not fixed. Identity is not permanent. Identity is not your destiny. It can be rewritten. It can be redesigned. It can be rebuilt from the ground up. Most people never realize this because they mistake familiarity for truth. They think their consistent pattern of behavior proves who they are. But behavior is not the starting point. It's the consequence. To change your life, you must first change your identity. The reason most people remain stuck in the average life trap is because they try to change actions without changing identity. They try to build new habits on top of an old self-image. They try to improve while holding beliefs that contradict improvement. They tell themselves they want more, yet deep down, they don't believe they're worthy of more. You cannot build a new life with an old identity. The inner story must shift before the outer life does. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. But every belief you hold is a rule that tells you how to behave. If you believe you're inconsistent, you will behave inconsistently. If you believe you're weak, you will avoid challenge. If you believe success is for other people, you will sabotage yourself whenever success approaches. The mind will always act in alignment with the identity it knows even if that identity is painful. People often say, "This is just who I am." But that phrase is rarely true. It's not who they are, it's who they learn to be. It's who they became to survive an environment that demanded smallness. It's who they became to avoid judgment. It's who they became because they never examined who they could be. When you say, "I'm just this kind of person," you are locking yourself inside a prison built from old experiences. But those walls are not real. They are memories. And memories can be rewritten with new behavior. Identity changes the moment you stop describing yourself based on your past and begin describing yourself based on your potential. You shift from "I've never been disciplined" to "I'm becoming someone who follows through," from "I always quit" to "I'm becoming someone who stays consistent," from "I'm not confident" to "I'm becoming someone who trusts themselves. Shift is subtle but powerful. You don't have to believe the new identity immediately. You only have to allow it to exist long enough for action to reinforce it. Identity is strengthened through consistency. Every time you act in alignment with your ideal self, even in a small way, you cast a vote for that identity. You reinforce that belief. You create evidence that the new version of you is real. Identity grows with proof. Proof comes from action. This is why small habits matter. It's not the size of the habit, it's the signal it sends. When you show up, even for 5 minutes, you are proving something to yourself. I am someone who shows up. You cannot think your way into a new identity, you must act your way into one. The mind follows the body's lead. Your self-image grows from what you repeatedly do. Your confidence grows from what you repeatedly overcome. Your discipline grows from what you repeatedly finish. The new identity becomes inevitable through repetition. You have to behave like the person you want to become before you fully become them. Action precedes belief. The biggest enemy of identity transformation is the past. The past will try to remind you of who you used to be. It will show you memories of failure. It will replay moments of embarrassment. It will whisper the old narrative in your ear. You've tried this before. You always go back to your old habits. You're not the kind of person who changes. These voices are familiar, but they are not truth. They are echoes of a former self. Growth requires silence. You must quiet the old identity long enough for the new one to speak. People get trapped when they allow their past identity to dictate their future decisions. They mistake consistency with personality. But consistency with the past is not the goal, consistency with the future is. You do not need to be faithful to who you were. You need to be faithful to who you want to become. You must be loyal to your future, not your history. The old identity kept you average. The new identity leads you beyond average. Environment shapes identity more than willpower ever could. If you surround yourself with people who settle, you will internalize settling as normal. If you surround yourself with people who aim low, you will believe low aims are reasonable. But when you surround yourself with people who push forward, who stay committed, who grow, who refuse mediocrity, who absorb their energy, identity is contagious. You become what the people around you reinforce. If you want a new identity, build a new environment. Identity also expands through challenge. Every time you face difficulty and push through, you rewrite the story of who you are. You go from someone who avoids discomfort to someone who can handle pressure. You go from someone who fears failure to someone who uses failure. You go from someone who doubts themselves to someone who trusts their strength. Challenge is the forge. The heat of discomfort reshapes identity faster than anything else. You cannot evolve without stepping into spaces where your old identity does not fit. Identity is also shaped by standards. Your standards determine what you tolerate in yourself, your effort, your habits, your relationships, your environment, your ambitions. Average identity comes from average standards. Extraordinary identity comes from refusing to accept less than what aligns with your potential. If you lower your standards, your identity weakens. But when you raise your standards, your identity rises with them. Standards are the boundaries that protect who you are becoming. One of the most transformative identity shifts is this: seeing yourself as the creator of your life, not the product of your circumstances. Most people see themselves as reactive, shaped by what happens to them. They blame circumstances. They blame luck. They blame timing. But the moment you take ownership, everything changes. Ownership says, I shape my habits. I shape my environment. I shape my decisions. I shape my future. That shift from passive to active is the birthplace of a new identity. Identity becomes truly powerful when it becomes non-negotiable. When you no longer entertain behaviors that contradict who you're becoming. When you no longer allow people, excuses, emotions, or fear to pull you back into the older version of yourself. When the new identity becomes the baseline, the default, the expected, that is when you stop trying to escape the average life and start living beyond it naturally. You don't escape average by copying extraordinary people. You escape average by no longer identifying as someone who accepts average habits, average beliefs, and average standards. Your identity must evolve. It must stretch. It must transform. And once it does, your actions follow. Your discipline follows. Your choices follow. Your life follows. Identity is not just who you are. Identity is who you choose to become. And once you choose intentionally, everything changes. Comfort is the most seductive force in the modern world. It promises ease. It promises pleasure. It promises relief from stress, uncertainty, and challenge. And because of that, comfort becomes the greatest enemy of growth. Quiet, gentle, and deadly. It doesn't attack you. It doesn't frighten you. It doesn't threaten you. It simply lulls you into stillness. It lowers your standards without you noticing. It convinces you that easy is the same as good. But comfort is not neutral. Comfort has a cost, and the price is your potential. The war with comfort is subtle. It doesn't begin with a dramatic moment. It begins with small decisions. You hit snooze once, and it becomes twice. You skip a workout once, and it becomes habit. You delay starting a project, and delay becomes avoidance. You scroll your phone for 5 minutes, and it becomes an hour. Comfort rarely shows up as a major life decision, shows up in microscopic moments, but those moments accumulate. They shape your identity. They create your reality. Growth feels hard because the human brain is designed to resist effort. The brain's #1 priority is energy conservation. Thousands of years ago, this kept humans alive. Today, it keeps people stagnant. Anything that requires effort feels threatening to the brain. The moment you attempt something difficult, waking up early, exercising, studying, building a skill, setting a boundary, the mind pushes back. It whispers, "Not now, not today, maybe later." This resistance is biological. It is natural. And it is universal. The difference between people who grow and people who stay average is not that some lack resistance. It's that some push through it while others obey it. Comfort offers instant gratification. Growth offers delayed gratification. That is why average feels easy and advancement feels hard. The human mind loves immediate reward. It loves the dopamine hits from entertainment, food, distraction, scrolling, and avoidance. These instant pleasures feel good now, but cost you later. Growth feels difficult now, but rewards you later. This creates a psychological trap. You begin to prefer what feels good in the moment over what feels good in the long term. And slowly, the future version of you becomes the sacrifice. Comfort becomes dangerous when it disguises itself as rest. Real rest replenishes energy. Comfort drains energy by giving you a false sense of recovery. You think you're relaxing, but you're actually numbing. You think you're resting, but you're avoiding. You think you're taking a break, but you're escaping responsibility. And every time you choose fake rest over real progress, you build a habit of avoidance. That habit becomes a lifestyle. That lifestyle becomes your identity. And that identity becomes the average life trap all over again. We live in a world engineered to weaken your discipline. Everything is designed around comfort. Food is convenient. Entertainment is endless. Social media is addictive. Technology removes friction from every part of life. The easier everything becomes, the harder it is to grow. Growth requires friction. It requires tension. It requires challenge. Without resistance, you cannot strengthen yourself. Without pressure, you cannot improve. Comfort removes the very conditions required for transformation. The war with comfort is internal. Every day you face two voices. One says, "Do what feels good now." The other says, "Do what creates a better life later." These two voices fight for control. Average people listen to the first voice. Extraordinary people listen to the second. The first voice is louder, but the second is truer. The first voice is easy, but the second is empowering. The first voice keeps you comfortable. The second voice sets you free. Comfort strengthens its grip by creating a false sense of time. It convinces you that you can wait, that tomorrow will be easier, that you'll start when things slow down, that the perfect moment is coming. But time does not wait. Dreams expire. Opportunities weaken. Momentum decays. Every day you delay, the average life trap tightens. Not because you lack time, but because your identity adapts to the comfort of waiting. Action becomes harder. Starting becomes scarier. change becomes intimidating. Comfort convinces you that you have timmed until one day you realize your don't. Growth feels hard because it forces you to confront your weaknesses. It requires honesty. It requires discipline. It requires stepping into situations where you might fail, where you might be judged, where you might struggle. Growth exposes your limits so you can transcend them. Comfort hides your limits so you never challenge them. When you choose growth, you choose truth. When you choose comfort, you choose illusion. You must understand this. Discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is training. Discomfort is where identity evolves. Discomfort is where resilience is built. Discomfort is where discipline becomes real. The fear people feel toward discomfort is not fear of pain, it's fear of becoming someone new. Growth threatens your old identity. Comfort protects it. But the old identity is the very thing keeping you average. To escape average, you must redefine your relationship with discomfort. Instead of avoiding it, you must see it as a sign of progress. As a compass, as evidence that you are growing. The discomfort you feel when you try something new is the doorway to a better self. The resistance you feel when you take action is the friction that builds character. The tension you feel when you push beyond your limits is the forge that sharpens your mind. Comfort convinces you that life should feel easy. But an easy life is not a fulfilling life. Comfort says you deserve breaks, rest, softness, ease. And you do, but only after effort, only after intention, only after commitment. Rest without work leads to emptiness. Comfort without purpose leads to guilt. Ease without growth leads to stagnation. Balance is not comfort alone. Balance is effort plus recovery, growth plus rest, work plus reward. Most people misunderstand the price of comfort. They think comfort protects them from pain. But comfort creates a different kind of pain. The pain of potential left unused. The pain of potential left unused. The pain of dreams abandoned. The pain of a life lived well below its capacity. That pain arrives later, but it lasts longer. Comfort is cheap in the moment and expensive in the end. Growth is expensive in the moment and priceless in the end. So the war with comfort is a war for your future, a war for your identity, a war for your potential. You are not fighting comfort because comfort is bad. You are fighting comfort because comfort left unchecked becomes your master. The moment comfort becomes your ruler, effort becomes your enemy. And once effort becomes your enemy, greatness becomes impossible. To win this war, you don't need to eliminate comfort. You need to control it. You need to earn it instead of hiding in it. You need to use comfort for recovery, not for escape. You need to place comfort at the end of the day, not at the beginning. Because the order matters. Comfort after effort builds confidence. Comfort before effort builds complacency. Growth will always feel harder than comfort. That's the whole point. Growth is supposed to stretch you. It's supposed to challenge you. It's supposed to demand effort. What feels hard today will feel normal tomorrow. What feels uncomfortable today will feel empowering later. The challenge you avoid is the challenge that controls you. The challenge you confront is the challenge that transforms you. The war with comfort never ends. It is a daily battle. A battle between who you are and who you could be. A battle between the life you live and the life you want. A battle between the old self and the new self. Some days you win. Some days you lose. But the person who keeps fighting becomes unstoppable. You escape the average life by choosing discomfort on purpose. By choosing challenge when comfort calls your name. By choosing growth when ease tempts you. Every time you choose discomfort over comfort, you step further into your potential. You rise above average. You become someone who does not settle. You begin to live the life you were meant to live, not the one comfort convinced you to accept. People dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a short burst of effort and completely underestimate what they can accomplish through small, consistent actions. They think transformation requires intensity, pressure, and huge changes. They imagine dramatic moments where everything shifts at once. They believe the breakthrough will come from a massive decision or a dramatic gesture. But real change, the kind that rebuilds your identity and reshapes your future, doesn't happen in explosions. It happens in repetitions. It happens quietly. It happens through small wins. Small wins are the core of transformation. They don't look impressive. They don't look dramatic. They don't look like they're changing your life. But they are. Each small win is a brick. One brick by itself is nothing. But thousands of bricks create the foundation of a new identity. Transformation is not built through rare moments of intensity. It is built through frequent moments of consistency. People often fail not because they lack ability, but because they set unrealistic expectations. They try to change everything at once. They overwhelm themselves with too much at the beginning. They aim for perfect discipline, perfect routines, perfect habits, perfect effort. And when they inevitably fall short, they interpret failure as a flaw in who they are. But they're not broken. Their strategy is, small wins solve this problem. Small wins bypass resistance. Small wins slip under the radar of your excuses. Small wins don't overwhelm your brain. Small wins create progress too small for the mind to reject, yet powerful enough for the mind to build on. And that strategy, tiny, consistent actions, is the only one that produces lasting transformation. The reason small wins work is because they create identity evidence. Every small action reinforces the belief. I am someone who does this. When you meditate for 2 minutes, that's evidence. When you read 1 page, that's evidence. When you walk for 5 minutes, that's evidence. When you clean 1 corner of your room, that's evidence. The size of the action doesn't matter nearly as much as the direction of the action. Identity grows from frequency, not scale. Most people underestimate the power of being consistent in small ways. They think small actions don't count. They think the only actions that matter are big ones. But big actions are rare. Small actions are daily. Big actions require motivation. Small actions require structure. Big actions create temporary spikes of progress. Small actions create permanent momentum. Momentum is the secret ingredient in escaping the average life. Once you build momentum, everything becomes easier. Habits become smoother. Discipline becomes more natural. Identity becomes stronger. But momentum doesn't come from giant leaps, it comes from tiny steps. The first small win creates the second. The second creates the third. And soon, you have a streak. A streak creates pride. Pride creates confidence. Confidence creates belief. Belief creates transformation. Small wins also eliminate perfectionism. Perfectionism is the belief that you must do something perfectly or not at all. It paralyzes people. It convinces them that if they can't perform at a high level, their effort isn't worth it. But small wins break perfectionism because small wins require imperfect action. They require starting before you're ready. They require progress without pressure. They require doing the minimum on days when the maximum feels impossible. Small wins destroy the all-or-nothing mindset that keeps most people stuck at nothing. Growth thrives in environments where pressure is low, but consistency is high. That's the power of small wins. They reduce psychological friction. They eliminate intimidation. They remove excuses. When the step is small enough, the mind cannot justify avoiding it. The task becomes too easy to reject. And ease is a powerful tool when used correctly, not the ease of comfort. The ease of entry. The ease of starting. The ease of taking a step so small it feels effortless. But the true magic of small wins appears over time. Small actions compound. 1 page becomes a chapter. 1 chapter becomes a book. $1 saved becomes a habit. 1 habit becomes wealth. 1 workout becomes strength. 1 honest conversation becomes a better relationship. Every transformation begins with a single small step. But that step repeats over and over until the person taking it is not the same person who started. It's important to understand that small wins are not about lowering standards. They're about raising sustainability. Anyone can push hard for a short time. Anyone can get motivated for a week. Anyone can overhaul their life temporarily. But very few can remain consistent. Very few maintain effort after the excitement fades. Very few stay committed when progress becomes slow or invisible. And that is why small wins matter. They keep you moving even when motivation disappears. Small wins create a sense of control. They give you proof that you can influence your life. They break the helplessness that average people feel. When you complete a small win, you create a moment where you chose progress over stagnation. That moment becomes evidence that you are capable of change. Over time, these moments accumulate until you no longer see yourself as a passive character in your life. You see yourself as the one in control. Small wins also reshape your brain. Every time you complete a small action, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with discipline, confidence, and follow-through. You train your mind to expect action instead of avoidance. You rewire your identity from "I avoid challenges" to "I take action consistently." This neurological shift is powerful. The brain adapts to repeated behavior. Small wins change your biology. It's not just your psychology. Another reason small wins transform lives is because they create quick feedback. When you take a small action, you experience a small result. That result becomes motivation. That motivation creates another action, and the loop continues. The faster the feedback, the stronger the loop. Big goals usually provide slow feedback. Small wins provide constant feedback. That feedback fuels momentum. Small wins also help you break big goals into pieces. Most people struggle because their goals are too overwhelming. They stare at the entire mountain and feel defeated before they take a step. But when you break the mountain into steps, a step you can take today, a step you can take tomorrow, the mountain transforms from something intimidating into something possible. You climb a mountain the same way you build a life, step by step. The biggest misunderstanding about small wins is thinking they are optional. They are not. They are essential. Small wins are the foundation of confidence, momentum, identity, and discipline. They are the only sustainable path out of the average life trap. Without them, you fall into cycles of burnout, inconsistency, and self-doubt. With them, you enter cycles of progress, confidence, and clarity. Small wins protect you from the lies your mind tells you. Lies like you're too far behind. Lies like you're not capable. Lies like you need to be perfect. Lies like it's too late. Each small action becomes a rebuttal. Each small step becomes resistance against the story that kept you stuck. Each small win becomes a reminder that change is possible. Eventually, something powerful happens. Small wins stop feeling small. They start feeling natural. They start feeling automatic. You no longer have to force yourself, you simply live as the person who does these things. Your identity changes. Your actions change. Your life changes. And all of it begins with steps small enough to do, even on your worst days. When you stack small wins long enough, you look back and barely recognize the person you used to be. You realize the average life trap no longer fits you. You outgrew it without even noticing, because the person who takes small wins seriously does not stay average. They rise slowly, steadily, and undeniably. Transformation is not a moment. It is a direction. It is a series of tiny decisions repeated consistently. Small wins may not feel life-changing today, but they shape the life you will live years from now. And when you finally experience the results of thousands of small wins, it will be impossible to imagine doing it any other way. Your environment is shaping you every second, whether you realize it or not. It influences your thoughts, your habits, your beliefs, your standards, your identity, and ultimately, your entire life trajectory. Most people believe they are independent thinkers, unaffected by the people and spaces around them. But the truth is simple. Your environment is either pulling you forward or pulling you down. It is never neutral. It is programming you every day. And if you are not conscious about the environments you enter, you will unconsciously become a product of them. Average environments create average people. Ambitious environments create ambitious people. Disciplined environments create disciplined people. It is nearly impossible to rise above the environment you stay in consistently. Not because you lack strength, but because humans are wired to align with the tribe around them. Your brain adapts to its surroundings. It mirrors the habits, the energy, the expectations, and the behaviors you see repeatedly. Without awareness, you will inherit the limitations of the people closest to you. The people around you shape your internal standards. If the people you spend time with settle for mediocrity, you begin to lower your standards without noticing. If the people around you complain, you begin to complain. If they avoid challenge, you begin to avoid challenge. If they fear risk, you begin to fear risk. Humans copy the emotional climate of their environment. You can resist for a while, but eventually, you will adapt. Environment always wins in the long run. One of the main reasons people remain stuck in the average life trap is because they are surrounded by others who are also stuck. Not because those people are malicious, but because they normalize a way of living that limits growth. When everyone around you lives without purpose, you start to believe that's normal. When everyone stays comfortable, you think comfort is the right path. When no one chases big goals, you assume big goals are unrealistic. Your environment shapes your expectations for life, and expectations shape destiny. The biggest mistake people make is trying to change their life. While staying in the same environment that created their problems, they try to improve themselves while remaining surrounded by people who drain them. They try to grow while staying in places that encourage stagnation. They try to become disciplined while spending time with people who are inconsistent. It's like planting a flower in soil that cannot sustain growth. You can water it. You can nurture it. But without the right environment, it will wither. Your environment influences your identity because identity is social. Humans want to belong. We adapt our behavior to avoid rejection. When you live in an environment where ambition is mocked, you will bury your ambition. When you live in an environment where effort is minimized, you will hide your effort. When you live in an environment where improvement is uncomfortable, you will shrink your goals to fit in. The fear of standing out makes people stay small, but the opposite is also true. When you enter environments where growth is the norm, you stretch yourself. You raise your standards. You adopt new habits. You begin to demand more from yourself. You begin to believe bigger things are possible. Improvement becomes natural because the environment reinforces it. You don't have to force discipline. It becomes easier because everyone around you is disciplined. You don't have to hide ambition. You feel encouraged to express it. You don't have to chase motivation. It becomes automatic because your environment demands your best. One powerful truth about environment is this: you cannot outwork the influence of the wrong people. You can try. You can push. You can grind. You can want more with your whole heart. But if you stay surrounded by people who drain your energy, doubt your potential, or normalize mediocrity, you will eventually slow down. The environment will pull you back to the level of those around you. Not because you're weak, but because humans are communal. We are tribal. We conform to survive. Most people stay in environments that limit them for one reason: comfort. The people around them feel familiar. The routines feel predictable. The conversations feel easy. But easy environments do not create strong people. Familiar doesn't always mean healthy. Comfortable doesn't always mean supportive. Many environments that feel safe are actually trapping you in patterns you no longer want. To escape the average life, you must become brutally honest about the environments you allow into your life. You must ask yourself, who drains me? Who inspires me? Who challenges me? Who holds me back? Who grows with me? Who shrinks me? Your answers reveal the direction of your identity. They reveal what you're becoming. They reveal whether your environment is a cage or a catalyst. Sometimes, the environment holding you back isn't a person. It's a place. A house full of distractions. A job with no growth. A neighborhood with no ambition. A town where no one dreams. A culture that discourages individuality. Environments come in many forms, and every one of them is influencing your behavior in ways you might not notice. There comes a point in everyone's life when they must decide whether they want comfort or growth. Staying in a familiar environment feels easier, but it keeps you anchored to your past. Moving into a new environment feels uncomfortable, but it opens the doors to your future. Every major transformation in your life will require an environment shift. You must upgrade your surroundings to upgrade your identity. Changing your environment doesn't always mean leaving everyone behind. Sometimes it means adding new influences, books, mentors, communities, creators, leaders, people who elevate you. Their energy recalibrates your standards. Their mindset infects your thinking. Their habits influence your behavior. You don't need to abandon your entire world. You only need to add enough new input to shift the overall direction of your identity. You must also learn to protect your energy from environments that drain it. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not every conversation deserves your attention. Not every space deserves your time. You have to become selective. You have to become intentional. You have to understand that your future depends on what you allow into your present. One of the most empowering realizations you can have is understanding that environment is a choice. You might not choose where you start, but you choose whether you stay. You choose who you listen to. You choose who you surround yourself with. You choose the spaces you spend time in. You choose the influences you absorb. And each choice shapes your future. When you begin to change your environment, something powerful happens. Your identity shifts automatically. You start adopting the habits of the people around you. You start mirroring their discipline. You start absorbing their ambition. You start raising your standards. You start thinking bigger. You stop apologizing for wanting more. The environment becomes the engine of your transformation. Eventually, you outgrow the environments that once felt comfortable. They no longer match your vision. They no longer match your identity. They no longer match who you are becoming. This stage is painful because growth often requires letting go. Letting go of old circles, old habits, old spaces, old versions of yourself. But that pain is necessary. The environments you leave behind are the ones that can no longer support your evolution. The people who escape the average life are the ones who understand the power of environment. They design their surroundings intentionally. They choose influence over familiarity. They choose growth over comfort. They choose spaces that reflect who they want to become, not who they used to be. And as their environment improves, their life improves automatically. In the end, environment determines identity. Identity determines behavior. Behavior determines destiny. If you want a different destiny, you must create a different environment. Because no matter how strong you think you are, you will always rise or fall to the level of the people and places you surround yourself with. There is a moment in every person's life when progress becomes impossible without truth. Not the soft truth, not the polite truth, not the comforting truth you tell yourself to avoid discomfort. Real truth, raw truth, brutal self-honesty that tears through denial and exposes everything you've been avoiding. This kind of honesty is painful, but it is liberating. Without it, you will live trapped inside illusions that keep you small. With it, you gain the power to change everything. Self-honesty is the rarest skill in the world. Most people avoid it because the truth is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront your flaws, your weaknesses, your inconsistencies, and your excuses. It forces you to admit where you've been lying to yourself. It forces you to see the gap between who you are and who you want to be. Most people would rather stay blind than face that gap. They prefer delusion because delusion is painless. But delusion is also deadly. It protects your ego while destroying your potential. The average life is built on small lies repeated daily. Lies like I'll start tomorrow. Lies. Like I'm tired. Lies like I don't have time. Lies. Like I'm doing my best. Lies like it's not my fault. Lies like I don't know how. Lies like I could change if I wanted to. These lies feel harmless, but they are chains. Each lie pulls you deeper into a life that does not match your potential. Each lie distances you from the truth you need to grow. Self-honesty begins with admitting the truth about your current life. Not the polished version you show others. Not the filtered version you post online. the truth you feel when you're alone. Are you really giving your best? Are you really trying? Are you really committed? Are you really living the life you want? Or are you hiding behind excuses? Are you letting fear control you? Are you settling? Are you playing small? These questions expose the reality you've been running from. You cannot escape the average life until you tell the truth about how you got there. You cannot build discipline until you admit where you've been undisciplined. You cannot become confident until you admit the insecurity you've been masking. You cannot evolve until you admit you've been avoiding your own growth. Self-honesty is not self-attack. It is self-awareness. It is the moment you stop lying to yourself and start seeing yourself clearly. The biggest lie people tell themselves is, "I don't know what to do," but deep down you usually do know. You know exactly what you need to fix. You know what habits are destroying your momentum. You know what distractions are ruining your focus. You know which people drain your energy. You know the patterns that make you miserable. You know the dreams you've been avoiding. The problem is not knowledge. The problem is honesty. The problem is that truth requires action. Action requires courage. Self-honesty is uncomfortable because it removes your excuses. Once you admit the truth, you can't hide behind lies. You can't blame circumstances. You can't pretend you're trying. You can't pretend you're confused. Self-honesty eliminates the safety net of delusion. It forces responsibility onto your shoulders. Responsibility is heavy, but it is also empowering. When you accept responsibility, you gain control. You can't change what you don't take ownership of. People often fear self-honesty because they confuse it with self-judgment. But judgment punishes you. Honesty frees you. Judgment says, "I'm a failure." Honesty says, "I've been failing in this area, and I can improve." Judgment says, "I'm weak." Honesty says, "I've been acting weak, but I can act stronger." Judgment destroys your identity. Honesty strengthens it. Judgment is emotional. Honesty is strategic. Self-honesty is the beginning of self-respect. When you tell yourself the truth, you begin to trust yourself. You begin to rely on your own clarity. You begin to make decisions that align with reality instead of fantasy. Truth brings power. Power brings confidence. Confidence brings momentum. Momentum brings transformation. It all starts with honesty. One of the hardest truths to face is the truth about effort. Most people are not giving 100%. They're not even giving 50%. They believe they're trying because they think about improvement, because they feel guilty, because they occasionally take a small step. But thinking is not effort. Guilt is not effort. Intention is not effort. Only action is effort, and you cannot transform your life with intentions alone. Another difficult truth is the truth about fear. Fear controls more lives than circumstance ever will. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of discomfort. Fear of standing out. Fear of changing. Fear of succeeding. People don't admit they're afraid. They disguise fear as logic. They say they're being practical. They say they're being realistic. But realism is often fear wearing a mask. Self-honesty removes the mask. It forces you to confront fear directly. Self-honesty also requires admitting the truth about your relationships. Are the people around you helping you grow or holding you back? Are they supporting your potential or reinforcing your limitations? Are they aligning with your future or anchoring you to your past? Honesty forces you to see that some people cannot come with you. Some people benefit from your stagnation. Some people prefer you small. Honesty reveals uncomfortable truths about the company you keep. You must also tell the truth about your habits. What are you doing every day that keeps you average? What do you avoid that could change your life? What do you neglect that needs attention? What do you prioritize that doesn't matter? What behaviors have you normalized that destroy your focus? Self-honesty doesn't just expose the habits that hurt you, it reveals the patterns that define you. There is another truth most people avoid, the truth about time. People pretend they have more time than they do. They act like they can delay change indefinitely. They think they can waste days, months, and years, because tomorrow will always be there. But tomorrow is not guaranteed. Time is slipping whether you notice or not. Self-honesty forces you to confront reality. You are running out of time to become the person you want to be. The deepest level of self-honesty is admitting that you are capable of much more than you've been showing. This truth is frightening because it eliminates all excuses. It means you cannot blame your past anymore. You cannot blame your environment anymore. You cannot blame circumstances anymore. It means the only thing standing between you and the life you want is you. That truth is heavy. But it is also the most empowering truth you will ever face. Self-honesty is the doorway to transformation. Without it, you are living in a story that isn't real. You are building your life on illusions. You are fighting battles that don't matter. You are blaming things that aren't the cause. You are avoiding the only thing that could change everything, the truth. When you finally face yourself without distortion, without filters, without excuses, you unlock a level of clarity that average people never reach. The truth may hurt, but it only hurts once. Lies harm you repeatedly. When you tell yourself the truth, you begin the process of rebuilding. You begin the process of releasing who you were. You begin the process of becoming someone new. Self-honesty is not a punishment. It is liberation. It is the key that unlocks the gate of the average. Life trap. The people who rise above average are not always the smartest or the strongest. They are the ones willing to be brutally honest with themselves. They face the truth others avoid. They confront the weaknesses others deny. They acknowledge the mistakes others hide. They look at themselves clearly, even when the reflection is uncomfortable. And because of that, they gain the power to rewrite their story. You cannot change without honesty. You cannot grow without honesty. You cannot escape the average life without honesty. Self-honesty is the blade that cuts the chains of delusion. And once those chains fall, nothing can stop you from becoming who you were meant to be. Consistency is the quiet force that separates those who change their lives from those who only talk about it. It is not dramatic, it is not loud, because it doesn't look impressive in a single moment. But over time, consistency beats everything. It beats talent. It beats motivation. It beats luck. It even beats intensity, because intensity is temporary. Consistency is enduring. Intensity can move you quickly for a day. Consistency moves you steadily for years. Most people obsess over intensity. They want to go all in. They want the extreme diet, the hardcore workout, the overnight transformation. They want to sprint. They want to feel like they're doing something big. But intensity burns out. It's impressive while it lasts, but it never lasts long. Consistency, on the other hand, doesn't always look impressive. It looks simple. It looks ordinary. It looks repetitive, but it compounds. And in the long run, compounding always wins. Consistency is the act of showing up, again and again, whether you feel like it or not. It is the discipline of repetition. The same habits, the same actions, the same standards. After day, week after week, month after month. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be extreme. You just need to keep coming back. Consistency is less about doing everything and more about never fully stopping. The truth is, most people don't fail because their plans are bad. They fail because they don't stay with any plan long enough. They jump from thing to thing. New idea, new goal, new plan, new strategy. Each time they start strong, then fade. They are addicted to beginnings, not committed to continuation. They want the feeling of starting, not the grind of staying. But the results you want don't live at the start. They live deep into the process. The only way to reach that place is consistency. Consistency is powerful because it builds momentum. Momentum is the invisible force that makes hard things easier. At first, every action feels heavy. Every task feels forced. Every step requires deliberate effort. But as you repeat the action, the resistance decreases. You build familiarity. You build rhythm. The work stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like who you are. That's the point where consistency becomes identity. At that point, quitting feels stranger than continuing. The average life trap thrives on inconsistency. It feeds on your stop-start patterns. It loves when you push hard for a few days and then crash. It loves when you get excited and then disappear, because inconsistency keeps you exhausted but unchanged. You feel like you're trying all the time, but in reality, you're just restarting constantly. You're always at the beginning. You never give yourself a chance to experience what stands on the other side of sustained effort. Consistency is not the same as intensity. The difference matters. Intensity is about how hard you can go right now. Consistency is about how often you return. Intensity asks, how much can I do today? Consistency asks, what can I still be doing a year from now? Intensity wants to impress people. Consistency wants to transform you. Intensity is emotional. Consistency is strategic. Your brain and body are designed to adapt to what you do regularly, not what you do occasionally. Doing something extreme once does almost nothing. Doing something small every day rewires you, changes your brain. It reshapes your nervous system. It alters your habits. It forms new patterns. It becomes normal. That's why consistency is so important. It is not about the size of your effort. It's about the frequency of your effort. People often quit because they don't see results fast enough. They imagine that progress should be visible quickly. But real progress is slow and often invisible at first. You will have weeks where nothing seems to change. You will have days where you question if any of this is working. This is where most people stop. They misinterpret the silence of early progress as proof that nothing is happening. But something is happening. You are changing underneath the surface. Your identity is shifting. Your resilience is growing. Your foundation is forming. Consistency is what carries you through this invisible phase until the results finally show. Consistency is also how you earn self-respect. Every time you show up when it would have been easier not to, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable, that your word matters, that you can depend on yourself. This builds a quiet confidence that doesn't need to be loud. You don't have to tell anyone. You just know it. And that knowing changes how you move through the world. One of the biggest enemies of consistency is the all-or-nothing mindset. The belief that if you can't do everything, it's not worth doing anything. This mindset destroys progress, convinces you to give up on days when you could have at least done a little. But consistency is not about always doing your best. It's about always doing something. On your best days, you push hard. On your worst days, you still show up. You never let the chain break completely. That is how consistency survives real life. Real life will not give you perfect conditions. You will be tired. You will get sick. You will have responsibilities. You will face stress, distractions, unexpected problems. Consistency is about adapting instead of quitting. Maybe you can't do the full workout today, but you can still move. Maybe you can't read a whole chapter, but you can still read a page. Maybe you can't work on your goal for hours, but you can do 10 minutes. Tiny effort is always better than no effort. A small step keeps the pattern alive. Once the pattern dies, starting again becomes 10 times harder. Consistency is more about system than willpower. Willpower is unreliable. Systems are sustainable. If every day you rely on motivation to decide whether you'll act, you will lose. But if you build routines, structures, and plans that remind you what to do and when to do it, you make consistency easier. The less you have to think, the more you will do. The smaller the friction, the more likely you are to act. Consistency becomes natural when your environment and routines are built to support it. Comparison destroys consistency too. When you constantly measure your progress against someone else's, you poison your own journey. You might feel behind, slow, or inadequate. You might think, what's the point? But consistency is not about being the fastest. It's about continuing. Your pace doesn't matter. Your direction does. Even a slow walker will beat a fast sprinter if the sprinter keeps stopping and the walker never does. The people who escape average are rarely the ones who did the most in a single day. They're the ones who did something every day. The ones who refused to disappear. The ones who outlasted their own doubts. The ones who stayed even when it was boring. Even when it was slow. Even when it felt repetitive. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is unstoppable. Consistency also protects you from emotional extremes. Without consistency, your life becomes chaotic. High days, low days. On days, off days. Productive weeks, wasted weeks. You never feel stable. But consistency anchors you. It gives your life rhythm. It gives your mind structure. It gives your identity a backbone. You know who you are because you know what you will do, regardless of how you feel. Over time, consistency turns into inevitability. It becomes almost impossible to fail if you just keep going. Not because everything will go perfectly, but because time multiplies action. If you show up for months and years, you will get better. You will improve. You will grow. You will adapt. You will become someone different. You might change direction. You might refine your goals. You might adjust your strategy. But as long as you keep going, you cannot remain the same. Consistency guarantees change. There's a simple way to think about it. Intensity asks, how much can I do today? Consistency asks, what am I still doing 5 years from now? The first mindset gives you a rush. The second mindset gives you a new life. The average person doesn't think in years. They think in moments. The uncommon person plays the long game. Consistency is the long game. You don't need to be perfect to be consistent. You will miss days. You will slip. You will fall. But consistency isn't about never falling. It's about always getting back up. It's about returning quickly. It's about refusing to let one bad day become a bad week, or one bad week become a bad month. You do not lose when you miss a step. You lose when you stop walking. In the end, escaping the average life is not about what you do once. It's about what you do always. It's not about the days you feel powerful. It's about what you do on the days you don't. It's not about the impressive bursts. It's about the quiet repetitions. Repetition is what rewrites your identity. Repetition is what rebuilds your future. Repetition is what pulls you out of the trap. Consistency is not exciting, but it is undefeated. And if you learn to honor it, if you learn to protect it, your life will go where sporadic effort could never take you. Escaping the average life is not a moment. It's not a single decision. It's not a motivational spike. It is a different path one most people will never walk. Not because they can't, but because they don't. Because the uncommon path requires something the average life never demands. Intention, awareness, discipline, identity, courage, consistency, honesty, it requires. The willingness to live differently from the world around you. It requires the strength to choose the difficult now so you can have the extraordinary later. The uncommon path is uncomfortable, especially at the beginning. You leave behind routines that once felt familiar. You distance yourself from environments that shaped your old identity. You challenge habits you've lived with for years. You confront truths you once avoided. You do the work most people ignore. You become someone new. And anytime you become someone new, the old version of you fights back. That resistance is normal. It is the price of evolution. Most people never escape average because they try to change their actions. They want progress without transformation. They want growth without discomfort. They want success without sacrifice. They want the reward without the process. But the uncommon path demands the opposite. It demands that you rebuild your life from the inside out. It demands that you choose long-term purpose over short-term pleasure. It demands that you commit when motivation dies. The truth is, escaping the average life is not as much about what you do as it is about who you become. Actions matter, but identity dictates actions. Habits matter, but standards shape habits. Environment matters, but courage determines whether you leave or stay. Discipline matters, but self-honesty determines whether you'll tell yourself the truth about why you're stuck. When you change who you are, everything else follows naturally. The uncommon path is an identity path. To stay on this path, you must understand something vital. There will always be temptation to return to average. Average is easy. Average is familiar. Average is comfortable. Average requires nothing from you. The world is built to keep you average. It gives you distractions. It gives you comfort. It gives you excuses. It gives you validation for staying stagnant. But nothing extraordinary grows in comfort. Nothing great comes from avoidance. Nothing meaningful comes from settling. To live beyond average forever, must build a life that supports greatness, not fights against it. You must create routines that reinforce your discipline. You must engineer environments that raise your standards. You must protect your energy like it's sacred. You must choose relationships that elevate you instead of drain you. You must build habits that stack, strengthen, and sustain your identity. You must live in alignment with the person you want to become, not the version you've outgrown. This means the uncommon path is not a sprint. It is a lifestyle. You don't escape average once. You escape it daily. Through the choices you make, through the habits you honor, through the thoughts you entertain, through the standards you enforce, through the boundaries you create, through the truth you're willing to face. Consistency is the currency of the uncommon path. Everything you want in life is earned through repetition, not intensity. There will be days when you feel tired, days when you feel behind, days when you feel unsure, days when everything in you wants to quit. These moments are not mistakes, they are tests. The uncommon path tests you to see whether you want the life you dream of or the life you're used to. It tests you to see whether you will fall back into comfort or rise into discipline. It tests you to see whether you are willing to carry the weight of your future instead of letting the weight of your past carry you. But here's the truth. Most people never discover. The uncommon path gets easier with time. The discipline that once felt heavy becomes a natural part of your identity. The habits that once felt forced become automatic. The environments you once feared leaving become insignificant. The discomfort that once scared you becomes the place where you grow. You stop being someone who is trying to escape average. You become someone who simply doesn't fit there. Anymore, when you step fully into the uncommon path, you begin to feel something powerful. You feel a sense of alignment. You feel proud of yourself not because of results, but because of who you are becoming. You feel stronger, clearer, more focused, more grounded. You trust yourself. You respect yourself. You start making decisions you once avoided. You start acting in ways you once only imagined. You start building a life that belongs to you, not to the fears, influences, and expectations that once controlled you. And that's when you realize the ultimate truth. Escaping the average life is not about reaching perfection. It is about living intentionally. It is about refusing to drift. It is about making choices that reflect your highest potential instead of your lowest impulses. It is about honoring the vision you have for yourself instead of shrinking to fit the comfort of others. It is about saying no more to the patterns that kept you small and saying not anymore to the person you used to be. The uncommon path is not for everyone, but it is for you if you choose it. And choosing it means truly deciding that you will not live a life you will regret, that you will not settle, that you will not repeat the same year over and over, that you will not be controlled by fear, that you will not be owned by comfort, that you will not play by the rules of average. You have one life, one chance, one story, and you get to decide whether that story becomes a warning or an example, whether it ends with regret or fulfillment, whether it stays trapped in potential or becomes something people cannot ignore. The uncommon path is not easy, but it is worth it. It is the path that leads to the life you actually want to live, a life you are proud of, a life you built, a life that reflects your strength, your vision, your discipline, your truth, your courage. You escaped average. Now you must stay beyond it. And if you stay on this path, if you remain consistent, honest, focused, disciplined, and intentional, there will come a day when you look back at your old life and realize something powerful. There was nothing wrong with you. You were simply living the wrong life now. You are living the one you were meant to build all along.